I had a really shitty week one. The Giants get embarrassed at home against the Vikings. They let Sam Darnold, of all people, completely throttle them for 3 hours straight. This happens days after I have to watch Saquon run wild for 3 touchdowns on Friday. Then I lose my Survivor League because this fraud Joe Burrow can't beat the fucking Patriots. Mr. Wide Receiver 1 on my fantasy team, Puka Nacua, gets carted off the field. All of this happened in the span of 8 hours. My NFL viewing experience got flipped upside down. My fantasy team is cooked. I'm already out of Survivor. My Giants fucking stink. Still, there was a glowing hope in the corner. A small shimmering light. Monday Night Football. Yeah, the Giants stink, but I had no expectations for them anyway. The Jets, Super Bowl contenders with Aaron Rodgers, are traveling across the country to prove themselves against the 49ers. And regardless of the shit show that occurred yesterday, this game could flip everything positively. Yeah, that didn't happen. First off, I needed 31 points to win my fantasy game, and I was relying on CMC to give me that. Yes, who got ruled out an hour before the game. Second, and more importantly, the Jets didn't win. Actually, it was a little worse than that. Not only did they not win, the 49ers dog walked them. No CMC, no trading camp for Trent Williams, no camp for IU. Not a damn problem. They had no problem moving the ball up and down on a Jets defense that was actually a calling card for them. They basically beat them 32-13 before a garbage time Lazard touchdown. On paper, this was a treacherous loss. A defense that was supposed to be top in the league got abused. An offense that was supposed to be improved didn't even put up 15 points. And Shanahan schooled Saleh at every single opportunity. For a team with Super Bowl aspirations, this was completely devastating for them. We got a direct viewing of the Jets' supposed Super Bowl team versus one that made it last year. And let me tell you, things have not gotten better. I mean, it's week 6 and the Jets are like 2-3 already. So what do we take from this? The real thing that held the Jets back in week 1 was trench play, which, with it being one aspect, may seem crazy, but in that first week, the Jets got dominated on both sides of the ball. The most egregious strain was their defense getting absolutely gashed by Jordan Mason and this offensive line. And yeah, I know Shanahan is great. I know how efficient and effective the Niners offensive line can be, but with the control that's available to the Niners solely due to the proficiency on the ground, it's imperative that you find a way to slow this run game down. This first play is going to be a big run. This is just unbelievable execution from the 49ers. And that's what they do. They can execute on like every single level. You see perfect chip block on this one. He's able to chip, move on to the second level. That slows down Quentin Williams enough. Again, I mean, he didn't need the help. Jermaine Johnson was getting stonewalled here anyway. But again, effective chip, able to move to the second level. Everything is functioning like a well-oiled machine. Jermaine Johnson here getting stonewalled. The chip, I showed the chip earlier. It slowed Quentin Williams down enough. I mean, he's able to shed this block, but he can't do anything because he's already, working his way back here. He already has him. He managed to get downfield. Everything is covered for. If you're the Jets, I mean, like, you have to get someone to shed a block. You just can't get stonewalled on every single level at this point. And I think I don't want to point fingers at anyone here, but you need a Jermaine Johnson to try to shed this block, or you need a Quincy Williams to use that speed to evade him when he's coming down to you. You can't get blocked at every single level here, and that's what the 49ers are able to do. This is more Shanahan magic right here. You're going to see as Debo is going to motion for the sweep and get it from Purdy right here, and that's going to cause a little bit of confusion in the secondary. Initially, I think Michael Carter is on him. As Debo starts to motion, he's forced to pass it off to the safety right here. And you see, as he tries to rotate, it causes some confusion and allows them to get the lane for the easy touchdown. That's not the only reason they got the touchdown, though. I just want to make that clear. On the sweep, it's generally probably on the second level to do something. So the linebackers and the safeties and the corners to try to shoot the gap and get a score. And in this situation, I mean, oh my God. I'm not trying to ask for too much, but like, if Chuck Clark could shoot this wide open gap right here and cause some discomfort for Debo, I mean, that's potentially a tackle for loss, or that at least stops the touchdown. Spoiler alert, there's going to be a touchdown on this play. It stops a touchdown that was going to happen from happening. And of course, it's another example of flawless execution from the 49ers. I mean, getting good push on, I think, McDonald, good push on Clemens. A guy is probably connected. Is that Quincy Williams? I mean, this is entirely the second level's responsibility to get out there and try to shoot these holes like this one. There's a scenario right here where you could shoot this gap and get to Debo. He doesn't do that. He just sort of waits for Debo to come through the gaping hole instead of, again, shooting through it. And Debo, I mean, as physical and powerful as he is, bulldozes into the end zone. Again, it's just these sloppy mistakes, bad safety play, and that causes
that causes a touchdown. Contrary, we see the Jets have an inability to really establish the run. Now, the passing game was really good, but the run game, not so much. I'm seeing the little things in the trenches that just give the 49ers the edge and the ability to stop plays like this from becoming into big ones. And these little things that they do stop the 5 yard gains, it's becoming 10-yard gains or 12-yard gains, gains that the Jets are allowing. So in this play, I want to point out a couple things that the 49ers were able to do to stop the run that the Jets couldn't really do. First thing right here, they were able to shed appropriately. So you see the defensive tackle, he's able to get a hand on Breece Hall when he comes into this hole right here, and he's able to tackle him, kind of. The second thing they have is a guy like Fred Warner. I want to praise Fred Warner on this play again. Fred Warner is able to fight through this block right here and actually draw Garrett Wilson right here into helping block him. This leaves this guy up here who's actually able to come in and fill the hole to kind of meet Breece Hall right here. Now, of course, he doesn't end up getting the tackle because, again, this defensive tackle is shedding, something the Jets can't do, and ends up wrapping Breece up by the legs. But let's just say this guy didn't shed right here. Because Fred Warner right here is able to eat up 2 blocks and prevent Garrett Wilson from coming up here and meeting this guy, it turns what would be potentially a big gain to him being there and being able to meet him in the hole. Also, Fred Warner still manages to shed these 2, which I mean, that's insane. This is another example of them trying to establish the run. This is again another thing I want to talk about. And look at Fred Warner. Oh my God! Besides Fred Warner being able to outrun the center Tippmann right here, something that on the previous play Quincy Williams wasn't able to do. I want to talk about the Jets' simplicity of running schemes this game. I mean, we just came from watching Kyle Shanahan draw up all sorts of crazy things. And with the Jets, we got 2 simple back-to-back toss plays. And with a guy like Fred Warner, it's nearly impossible for that to be successful on a consistent basis. In this 49ers game, there are so many reasons the Jets' run game didn't really work. Of course, you could blame it on poor blocking or, Fred Warner game breaking. I think it falls down to a couple of things. Kyle Shanahan being more creative, Kyle Shanahan preparing his offensive line way better than the Jets did, the 49ers overall being so much more disciplined and so much smarter than the Jets. It doesn't take a genius to tell that the 49ers absolutely schooled the Jets during this game. But despite all of that, the passing game looked really good. So this is a good read from Aaron Rodgers. This is actually pretty simple. He motions Garrett Wilson. Then he realized that this guy is going to follow him across the field entirely. And because of that, he realizes, okay, it's man coverage and it's going to be easy screen to Garrett Wilson. And because when Garrett Wilson resets, he's so deep and he has so much of a cushion, he throws it quickly and it gets Garrett Wilson in space. So this obviously displays what Aaron Rodgers brings to the table. His pre-snap recognition is insane and it allows plays like this where you could quickly realize what's going on and instantly fire a pass to Wilson to get your playmakers in playmaking areas. At this, I think it's a 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 6 at this point. But either way, to keep the drive alive, they need to do something. This guy going to stay in the flat, so it's going to be off zone coverage. So he's trying not to get deep, beaten deep here. So he's going to kind of backpedal, and that leaves a wide open hole right here for Garrett Wilson to, I think, settle in and get the first down. Aaron Rodgers recognizes this, and nice job.
Now, Jets fans were still optimistic after this game, and there were things to be optimistic about. Aaron Rodgers looked good. The offense looks like it can move the ball. They were sure the defense was going to improve. But when you look back at this game and then look at where the Jets are now, there are a wide variety of themes that paint the failure of this Jets season, at least so far.
Disappointment in the game of life.
I have a lot of descriptions for the Jets defense, but a problem isn't really one of them. Last year, the Jets defense was elite through and through, arguably one of the best in the league. But with a lot of shuffling going on during the offseason, with them getting rid of JFM to make way for Hassan Reddick and Reddick not showing up, there's been some holes that have protruded in this Jets defense. Now, let me make this clear. The Jets defense isn't bad by any means. I mean, for a majority of the season, it's played like a top 10-ish defense. Sauce Gardner, despite having a down year, is still elite. DJ Reed has been playing elite, and overall, their pass defense is stellar. There is just one problem, though. One glaring hole. One hole that appeared in week 1, their run defense. As I said before, Jordan Mason absolutely torched them on the ground. And the theme of running backs torching them on the ground has been very prevalent. A lot of the time, this Jets run defense looks around the worst in the league.
This is the play right here. And
This one is a little bit of a toughie. They have the double team right here, blocking, I think that's is that Clemens, and they have the double team on this one, and that leaves mainly two holes, one through the B gap, another one through the C gap. And again, it's on the second level to find a way to fill these lanes. Now, I would say it might be on Quincy to see if he could fill this gap right here, but he's already being taken out by Calvin Ridley. It's really only on CJ Mosley kind of pick his poisons and to see which gap Pollard is going through. And maybe Sherwood too could assist with that. Unfortunately for them, they both go through the same gap. So DJ Mosley full on commits to this gap, and Sherwood's kind of dancing up to going through this gap. So now there's no one to fill the gap, and that leaves Pollard with a wide open lane, and he gets to the second level. And the safeties have to do something about that. This one's probably on one of the second level, one of these three. Maybe if Quincy doesn't get stonewalled by a wide receiver in Calvin, or maybe if CJ Mosley picks the right gap, or Jermaine Sherwood, they know what they're doing. They don't go through the same gap and get blocked. Then this wouldn't be as big of a gain as someone could actually cover this wide open lane. But that just doesn't happen. It's going to be another outside run this time. It's basically on Ashton Davis to shut this down. And with it being an outside run, he has two options: contain the edge or shoot up the gap. That's your two options. If you want a productive play, you can either contain the edge right here or shoot up the gap and try to prevent something on the interior. You want to guess what he does? Neither. He doesn't do any of them. He runs up and there's a gap to stop this play. Like there's a gap. Like there is the potential to shoot up here and to disrupt this instantly. Like nobody's gonna block you, but he just stands there. He just stands there and walks into a block. And with nobody containing the edge right here, guess who has a wide open lane to eat up all this yardage? And it's not like he wasn't doing anything. I'm sure he thought that maybe this could be a play action and maybe I should drop back into coverage if he is. That's why he hesitated a little bit. Either way, that's still terrible recognition. And it's entirely on you. And of course, Sauce Gardner isn't doing shit in run defense. I don't know what you expect. And they get an easy couple of yards. Obviously, it's another bad rep from the Jets. And again, this is like mid-second quarter. And I went over a couple of toss plays against the 49ers. And you saw the toss plays. I think it's the first play of the season, the first play I reviewed in this video. It was a sweet play to Breece Hall. And I broke down how valuable what Fred Warner did was and how quick he recognized the play. I want you to compare what Fred Warner does and how quick he recognizes this to how quick Quincy Williams is able to recognize that it's an outside run, because he does it super fucking slow. Right, he's standing there flat-footed. He's prepared to rush in the middle, bro. What is he doing? Oh my god! This is not really on CJ Mosley because he's playing left and the run is to the right, so I can't really blame him for this. This is almost entirely on Quincy Williams right here. This is I love Quincy, bro. But the more I replay, the worse it looks. Again, like I'm gonna give you some homework right here. Okay, so the first play I reviewed in this video, it was week 1. It was Jets toss play to Breece Hall, and it was their first play of the season. And I broke down on how important what Fred Warner did, and how he indirectly blew up the play. And there was also a couple more toss plays in the game. I want you to look at how quick Fred Warner reacted to the halfback toss or the halfback sweep or the halfback outside play, and I want you to compare it to how quickly or how slowly or whatever the fuck Quincy Williams does. I want you to realize how ridiculous what he just did was. Quincy Williams is very fast. He's very explosive. He's very physical. But a better linebacker could realize this is obviously going to the outside and begin to slide up here to eventually make his move to dash him and try to secure the edge. And if you don't believe me, I want you to look at the difference between TJ Mosley and the position he's in and compare it to the position that Quincy Williams is. He's already sliding to try to make his way there. He knows it's going to be a run play. But Quincy, genius that he is, he decides to chop his feet and instead of trying to go around, he decides to sprint right up the middle and try to get him through there. And just take a guess what happens when he does. Just take a guess what happens when he does that shit. He got stonewalled. So now you have nobody playing outside to get to him. Look what you got now. You got two 6'5", 300-pound behemoths
pulling to block these itty bitty defensive backs out here. And you have space for Tony Pollard to run. And that doesn't end well for them. I'm going to reiterate this again. Last game, it was them being better. But this game, it's just you guys being worse. The silly mistakes.
I know I only showed a couple of clips, but the problem is a lot bigger than that. Consistently, game after game, the Jets are getting gashed by these no-name running backs. With the exception of Quinnen Williams, everyone on the defensive line is getting moved effortlessly, play after play. Literally, all you have to do to guarantee at least a 5-yard gain on this Jets defense is hand the ball off, double Quinnen Williams, and run away from him, and you're getting a 5-yard gain. It's that simple. Because literally no one on this defensive front can shed consistently. And with the guys on the second level, CJ Mosley and Quincy Williams, not being elite run support, then it leaves the Jets in this terrible position. Last year, the run defense wasn't that great either, but they ended up shipping John Franklin Myers to clear space for Hassan Reddick, and Hassan Reddick isn't playing at all. Javon Kinlaw, who they signed, is playing terribly, and Quinnen Williams is having a little bit of a down year. The worst part is there's not really a direct way for them to fix it. Even if Hassan Reddick comes back somehow, he's not an elite run support guy. Honestly, they just simply have to play better, and I've seen very little indication that they could do that so far this season. In the last segment, I refrained from using the word disappointment because honestly, the defense hasn't been that much of a disappointment. But I will not refrain from saying that the rushing game has been a heavy disappointment for the Jets this season. Last year, Breece Hall was one of the best running backs in the league, especially to start the season, averaging above 5 yards per carry, tallying above 1,000 yards, and being an elite receiving option too. All of this was coming off of a torn ACL the year before. They also have Braylon Allen, another very talented running back who's flashed a lot, but for some reason, the run game just hasn't been working. I think this running back tandem for the Jets is objectively around top 10 in the league, but they have one of the worst rushing attacks in the NFL. That's kind of strange, isn't it?
Now, Breece had a pretty bad game this week. I'm sure all the Breece Hall fantasy owners know this. And it definitely increased the chatter of Braylon Allen being better than Hall. And it's tough for me to agree with this when there's reps like these. Examples of horrible blocking from the offensive line. Number 40 right here makes a good play and loops through the gap, meaning it's now John Simpson's, the offensive lineman's responsibility to move off of the defensive tackle he's blocking and shift to the linebacker. And from the double team that's happening right here, this guard is supposed to shift now to the defensive tackle. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. When this guy switches to the linebacker, this guy doesn't switch to the defensive tackle. And since he had to switch late, both of them end up being in the backfield. Breece somehow doesn't get called for a safety here, which is remarkable in his effort. The offensive line consistently has bad reps like that, and there's no space to block. There's nothing to really do. Because with the Jets, it's not like you're just getting beat. You're failing to do your job. The Jets started this drive pretty well. They run a play action to Tyler Conklin and pick up about 8 or 9 yards, which gives them an easily convertible second and short. This is sort of a reason why Breece Hall might be a little unreliable in short yardage situations. With facing a linebacker one-on-one and having the center on his backside, I think Breece's best option would be to cut it back inside here. Now, he's probably not going to be able to get to this area right here because you have this defensive tackle shedding and the linebacker's still probably going to get a couple hands on him. But with this being a second and short and him aiming to get the first down, this option is a lot better than what he did, which is to run into his offensive line and fall to the ground. And while it may have been an unproductive play, it's still a 3rd and 3. You still have a high percentage look to convert. This should be easy. Not anymore. That false start right here turns that 3rd and 3 into a 3rd and 8. Turning a 3rd and short into a 3rd and long. Turning a high percentage conversion into a low percentage conversion. Aaron Rodgers ends up getting tackled, and that pretty much sums up the dysfunction of the Jets offense. Their inability to convert with the run, and their small, stupid mistakes that bite them in the back. So despite the productive 9-yard play they got, they choked it away due to stupid errors. Now, it's not the end of the world. Despite their woes on the previous drive, the Jets managed to force a fumble on the defensive end and draw a pass interference penalty that got them to the 1-yard line. Meaning it is 1st and goal at the 1-yard line, and they have Braylon Allen on their team. I mean, you'd assume that they'd convert this, right? On the first play, we see Breece Hall getting stonewalled short of the goal line. And again, this is another example of Breece's vision being questionable. At this point, the cutback lane is open for Breece Hall. If he jabs a foot in the ground and cuts that way, he's probably going to have a touchdown. And even with the linebacker right here, Brees has the power and the athleticism to drive himself in to the goal line on a one-on-one carry. Instead of doing that, he does this and tries to force himself in the goal line through the back of his offensive line. Now, this wasn't the worst idea in the world from Brees Hall. Like, I can kind of see what he's doing here, but a guy with better vision would have seen this wide open cutback lane. Okay, how about now? Second and goal from the half-yard line. Can they punch it in this time? The Jets, for the second time in a row, opt to go to a run for Brees Hall. Difference is, though, this time it's going to be run to the outside. How do I know this? Well, he has two blockers, lead blockers, pulling towards that direction to eat up these two guys. And these two blockers do something interesting here. Both of them do a good job sealing off this guy, but they don't count for number 57 right here. Spoiler alert, this play doesn't work. Now, initially, you may think that I'm blaming them for this play not working, but I'm not actually. I'm blaming Brees Hall. See, now these two guys focusing on number 6 only sets the edge for Brees. And since the edge is set, ideally, Brees would run to the outside and use his athleticism to get the touchdown. Unfortunately, as you could probably see here, Brees doesn't do that. He doesn't even come close to doing that. He instead runs right up to number 57 and tries to make a play that way, which is befuddling to say the least. Again, these two guys are down blocking number 6 and creating an edge for you to run around. And with Brees being one of the most athletic running backs in the league, this should be an easy touchdown. So I don't know why instead of running to the outside when you have the edge set perfectly for you, you decide to run inside and try to bulldoze over number 57? That's confusing to me, and obviously it doesn't work. It's play number 1, I could kind of understand it, since it was a cutback lane and you thought you could bulldoze in, and you almost bulldozed in. But with play number 2, that's just horrible ball carrier vision. So now the Jets are forced on a third down with 2 straight runs not working, so they run the play action. And of course, nothing's there. Aaron Rodgers is forced to throw it away. Meaning with a first and goal at the 1, solely due to how terrible the Jets' run game is, they were not able to convert. And now they're facing 4th and goal. But the Jets not only line up on a 4th and goal, they line up with Braylon out in the backfield to try to punch this in. And with an opportunity to go up 7-0 on a team who's not doing shit offensively, this isn't that bad of an option. Well, at least until that happens. Another flag is thrown, and it's a false start, meaning a first and goal from the 1-yard line had turned into a 4th and goal from the 6. Due to 2 things: a bad run game and stupid mistakes from the offensive line, similar to what happened the drive previously. So this is another example of the Jets shooting themselves in the foot, especially on the offensive side of things.
The Jets' run game obviously has talent. We already went over this, but the lack of run game is pinned on both the offensive line and Hackett. The first game Hackett got removed as offensive coordinator, we saw more motion, more unique calls, and a more productive run game. And honestly, if the run game could work, then this offense is gonna be crazy. If you were to ask me what's the biggest disappointment for this Jets offense, I'd be inclined to say that it's this passing game. With Rodgers, Garrett, and an improved offensive line, and Mike Williams, the expectation was that they were going to be one of the top passing attacks in the league. Obviously, though, the concerns were still there. Rodgers is 40 and he was coming off an Achilles injury, and even though he didn't have to be elite, a sharp decline would be very possible in this scenario. The thing is, though, he still looks elite. Rodgers. Despite the numbers not being there, he physically still looks like an elite quarterback. And of course, I could talk about how he still has an elite arm or whatever, but I want to talk more so about his intellect and what that brings to the Jets offense.
His pre-snap readability is uncanny. Notice this cushion between Lazard and his defensive back. And with it being one-on-one with no real linebacker or safety help on this side, on an absolute fly, Aaron Rodgers throws a screen pass towards his way. All Lazard has to do is beat his man right here, and he goes in for the touchdown. When this offense is in rhythm and all moving parts are aligned, it is a well-oiled machine. It's really hard to stop this team. Like, really hard. If Brees and Braylon are able to consistently get push and Rodgers is able to work off the play action, then he literally could just pick your team apart without any resistance. This is the concept the Jets like to run. They have Tyler Conklin run a clear out in hopes that he takes the linebacker deep down the field. This is to try to free up some space for
the slot receiver to run some form of underneath route. They just usually like to run this sort of play on second and long situations in hopes that they could pick up a solid gain. And we see it's executed to a T. This linebacker right here is already taken deep, and since it's man, all Xavier Gipson had to do was run an inside route on outside leverage and hope Aaron Rodgers delivers a good ball to it. And it's Aaron Rodgers, so he does that. This is a 3rd and long right here, right? Broncos are showing a heavy blitz front with 7 or 8 guys on the line, and they're also showing man coverage across the board. Basically, it's a cover 0. And with it being man coverage across the board, having the cornerbacks playing so deep, the receivers have leverage. And you're going to see Aaron pre-snap adjusting to this and using the cadence. And he communicated directly with Allen Lazard and adjusted his route. And with the new concept relayed to Lazard and the receivers, all Lazard really has to do is take advantage of this cushion right here and run an in-breaking route on a defensive back who's shading deep and outside. With Conklin leaking to the sideline too, it creates that extra space for Aaron and Lazard to take advantage of this wide berth of area that's open to them. Aaron buys just enough time and is able to fire a complete pass to Lazard. It's no coincidence that Allen Lazard is the Jets' leading receiver through 3 weeks, because him and Aaron are basically on the same wavelength. They already have the chemistry built up. We're going to see how off this guy is on Allen Lazard and the amount of space they have in between each other. And Allen, they know what they're doing, right? They're on the same wavelength. And he realizes, okay, I have to settle in the zone and I have to wait for Aaron to deliver me a ball. Aaron knows the instant he snaps the ball, what's going to happen, finds him, fires it, boom, easy completion for borderline a first down. That's just something him and Garrett don't have yet. If you're a Garrett Wilson fantasy owner and you're confused on why his production has gone down, despite the fact that he's gained Aaron Rodgers, this will probably explain why. Right here, this is 2nd and 10, and as Garrett Wilson motions, the Broncos are going to adjust into 2 high look. And with these 2 safeties up top, dropping deep, the corners on the outside playing man coverage, and only really the middle linebacker dropping deep, this leaves the hole in the zone to be somewhere around here. And that's where Aaron Rodgers throws the ball, or at least tries to. Garrett Wilson is going to be running a skinny post, and Aaron expecting him to settle somewhere in the zone that I mentioned previously so he could deliver the ball to him. Garrett, though, he just does not do that. And he keeps on running up the field, ignoring the hole in the zone that was right here. If him and Rodgers were on the same page and he were to settle in the zone, this would have been an easy big play for the Jets. But he didn't know and he didn't do it. And that takes that play off the board. There's many instances of this too. This isn't just a random occurrence. It's 3rd and 10 right here. They need a first down. Garrett's going to be matched one-on-one with no help. The Jets offense with Aaron Rodgers is centered a lot around timing because of how good Aaron Rodgers is pre-snap and how quickly he delivers the ball. So when Garrett Wilson runs this out route against his corner and dusts him, the play has to be completed with correct timing. And Aaron Rodgers sees this right off the bat. He sees the leverage that Garrett Wilson has, and he knows how good of a route runner he is. So from the second the ball is snapped, he's already planning on delivering this ball to Garrett. And it's timed pretty well. But the ball's in the air as Garrett is breaking out, which is how it's supposed to be. Unfortunately, I don't think Garrett was on the same page. Now, I'm not going to say this ball is perfectly thrown or anything. It's a little bit in front of Garrett Wilson, but if he was totally aware what was about to happen, he'd 100% try to make a play on the ball. And if he did try to make a play on the ball, he's talented enough to come down with it. Unfortunately, when the ball comes to him, he just looks clueless. Like he's like, oh, I didn't see that. And for the Jets, that ends the drive. Sharpness isn't really there. This is a play that's frustrating for the Jets. We see a couple of things on this play, but the main thing I see is another example of how Garrett and Aaron are not exactly on the same page. Since the run game has been working, they're going to do a little bit of a play action deep shot. And we see Garrett Wilson absolutely lose his defender on this inside release and cut up to the backfield. And he's wide open here. And this is the play Aaron Rodgers should make. Absolutely clean pocket for him to throw to. He literally sees Garrett Wilson. But once again, for some reason, he just doesn't throw it. He hesitates and he just doesn't throw it. He just doesn't do it. Even if like you're worried about this linebacker, like nobody could realistically make a play on this ball here. Like if you throw it,
right here, this is an easy catch for Garrett Wilson. But again, he just, for some reason, doesn't throw it. That's a big opportunity to miss from Aaron.
Now, I'd be a lunatic if I didn't mention the Davante Adams trade. I literally just went on a segment on how crucial chemistry is for an Aaron Rodgers offense. When you bring in arguably a top 5 receiver who basically shares a brain with Aaron Rodgers, he's obviously going to help. But I don't think that's the most impactful change. I actually think shifting the play calling to Todd Downing could potentially improve the offense the most. The biggest problem with the Jets offense wasn't the inconsistency in the passing game. The bigger problem was the drop-off in run efficiency from last season to this season. And while not only is the inconsistency in the passing game partially on Nathaniel Hackett, but the run game has also looked better under Downing. If Downing can potentially improve this run game long-term, while the pass game enters an elite territory with Adams, then that adds an entire new dimension to this team. But the Jets aren't in the clear just yet. They still need a consistent run defense. And sure, while Reddick is back from his offseason escapades and will offer some help, he's not good enough at that particular aspect to stop the dam completely. The offensive line is also a concern. The amount of hits Aaron Rodgers has taken, especially when you consider how quickly he releases the ball every time, it not only puts his health in concern, it also hinders the offense. And those holes, those are the main reason Woody fired Saleh. Woody obviously can't plug all these holes on the team mid-season. Trust me, he's tried. And honestly, it doesn't really make sense. But those aspects were so bad, he just had to make a rapid shift and change. And making that shift and change, he hopes that something just gets fixed. The Jets are still flawed. Duh. But there's life with this team. Uncapped potential. I'm excited to see where this goes. It's going to be a roller coaster.